Teen Speak. Empowering today's youth. The purpose of Teen Speak is to allow teens a safe space to share stories and strategies around challenges and inspire other teens on how to meet their own challenges or make their mark in our world. Some of our guests may have done some inspiring things that may not resonate with everyone's views, be it personal or political. This is not a political podcast, and though we have our own personal views, our guests do not necessarily reflect our views. They are simply here to share a story and experience in hopes it inspires others to be the best version of themselves and make the impact they desire in the world.
Welcome to Teen Speak, empowering today's youth. I am Antoine Thompson, or Coach T in North Carolina.
And I'm Keith Senzer, Coach Keith, based in New York.
New York and North Carolina, and everybody knows this time of year it is hot. It's blistering, 88 degrees here in North Carolina. What do you got in New York, Keith?
Today we're at 82.
Yesterday
was 98.
Holy moly.
Nuts.
Now you see why I have such a good tan. All right. Well, listen, today we have an amazing guest. We actually have a student athlete. I'm just going to share a little bit about her. She's a Japanese American and born in Portland, Oregon. She's been fencing for about 10 years, and she's a rising sophomore at Northwestern University. She's a part of their Division I fencing team, and in her freshman year, she became the team MVP with the most regular season wins. She's an NCAA All-American and was named the USFCA Sabre Newcomer of the Year. And besides fencing, she's an avid reader, and she speaks Japanese. We hope you will help us welcome Megumi Oishi to Teen Speak, empowering today's youth. How are you today, Megumi?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, yeah, we're glad to have you here. So there was something in your guest form that just blew me away when I saw it, when we asked about your favorite go-to song. And the song you picked was a song that came out when I was a year old, and that was in 1965. Yeah. Bobby Fuller 4, right?
Yes, sir.
Let Her Dance. So first question I got to ask you, why that song?
Yeah, so my mom used to make me watch really niche movies, and she had me watch Fantastic Mr. Fox by Wes Anderson, which is a stop motion movie. And, I thought I was going to hate it when I was like 6, but I absolutely loved it. And that song is from the credit sequence at the end. And that's when they're all the characters are dancing and they're all happy and everything. And I mean, it's just such a happy song, and I love it so much.
That's crazy. Yeah, I actually went to listen to it. I started listening like, yeah, this takes me back. This takes me back to our heyday, Keith, because I'm not going to pretend like you weren't in there with me about that same time.
Very little.
Yeah, that's great. Well, the reason I brought that up, Megumi, is because I'm a lover of music, and as is Keith. His son plays drums. I play drums, and we actually absolutely love music. And music from our generation is really kind of coming back. So it's great to see that you appreciate that. And we applaud your mom for introducing you to that. And just keep listening to the good music. That's all I'll tell you.
I was just going to ask, love to hear about your journey into fencing. Like when did you start? What got you interested in it? And, just take us through, just because, as you know, this podcast is about, right? Like I'm sure there's other student athletes that might listen to this. And, we all know there's a lot of stress and a lot of organization and a lot of commitment that goes into getting to where you are, right? To be at the level that you're competing at. So kind of take us through your story, how did it start and, what you've been through and, where you are today.
Absolutely. So I started fencing as a 9-year-old, and again, it was my mom. So I was not an athlete at all. I was so bad at every single ball game. Actually, there's one point where my mom took me to play volleyball once, one-on-one with her when I was about 8 years old. And we were playing, and I was missing every single pass that she brought my way. And I was just playing really badly. And then my mom squatted down and on the ground. She covered her head and she was like, oh my God, my daughter's never going to succeed in any sports ever. Like, she cannot do this. And so she just really wanted to get me into sport, any sport. And, you know, she was tossing ideas out there. She was like, what about badminton? What about soccer? And I was like, no, no, no. And then eventually she just tossed an idea out there. She was like, okay, what about fencing? We've seen it on TV before. What do you think about it? And I thought it was a pretty cool sport. You know, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, wow, sword fighting. And so I was like, okay, sure, why not? And so she put me in a summer camp when I was 9, and I just absolutely fell in love with it. Fencing is such a unique sport in that you're kind of thinking in like terms of milliseconds at the same time that you're moving. And at the same time, you can choose your weapon. So there's 3 weapons: saber, epee, and foil. And saber is the most aggressive one. And even though I just kind of like stumbled into saber fencing and didn't really think all that much about it, it actually fits my personality the most. And I absolutely grew from that. I used to be a shy kid who hated anything athletics and, you know, socializing and whatnot. And I didn't put myself out there. But once I started to actually go to tournaments, and then, you know, it's the funny thing, you know, I started losing to people and I was like, this doesn't feel great. You know, I feel like I should be winning these. And I know that I can, you know, train and, you know, alter my movements and things like that. So I can beat these people and I can come back stronger next time. So fencing really helped me fuel my competitive fire and shape me to be the person that I am today. I think I would have been a much more passive person who wouldn't put myself out there all that much. So, you know, being on podcasts like this, even, you know, I don't think I would have had the confidence to do that if not for sports and fencing.
That's great. I love how you link those two together, right? Like when you're focused on something and you do well at it, how it really, right? It builds confidence, like in every other part of your persona.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I think I like the part where you mentioned where you weren't really good at sports early on, and instead of just giving up on it, you know, you and your mom worked until you found something that you connected with, and you felt like you could really excel in, if you will. And the second part is when you were losing in the beginning, you didn't just give up on it. You know, you knew you liked it. It's just a matter of, hey, how do I become successful with this? And that's what determination is about. And again, you know, we'll probably reference this a lot, but this is why it's so important to have a podcast like this and to have young people like yourself come on and share, because I can guarantee you there are a lot of young people out there that are probably struggling the same way at the age you were, like at 9, you know, trying to figure out, hey, what is it I want to do? I want to be active. I want to be, you know, I want to be competitive, but I got to find the right sport. And I love how you said when your mom said soccer, you're like, no, not soccer. So
Yes.
this is a great segue into, you know, you getting your opportunity at Northwestern. Can you kind of share how that came about, and then share us a little bit more about your school?
Absolutely. So, I started to kind of realize that fencing could help me get into college in around 8th grade. And at the time, I was a straight C student. I was really just not putting a whole bunch of effort into academics, and people around me were saying, you know, oh, Megumi, like if she only put like a little bit more effort into her studies, maybe she'd do well. But at the time, I was not doing well in school, and I ended up having to go to a big public high school because I hadn't been able to get into any private schools in the area with you know, with my transcript and everything. But as soon as I got into high school and, you know, I was still going to my fencing club while going to school, you know, I saw these girls at my fencing club, the alumni, come in with these big fencing bags with logos from Notre Dame, Temple University, Stanford University. And I looked at those girls and I was like, I want to be like them. And I want to use the sport to get me somewhere that I don't think I can at this level right now, but I probably can in the future. And so that really helped me kind of start my journey in making myself more confident and making myself more, you know, I think a better version of myself, a version that I could be proud of and be confident in. And so I started to, dive more into my studies, even though in fencing, recruitment is a little bit easier because it's a smaller playing field. Academics is still very important. And so the average GPA is actually very high for fencing. And so I started to really go into my studies. I went to tutors. I went to my teachers for help. I asked questions. I'd raise my hand. I told myself I need to raise my hand twice in class, at least. And so every day I was building up my confidence and building up, my academics. And obviously at fencing, I was trying very hard. And in junior year, that all paid off when Northwestern University reached out to me and said, "Hey, we want you on our fencing team, and we'd like to continue that conversation about it." And I had a lot of conversation with other top 10 and top 20 universities about attending, college there. But I think one thing that stuck out to me about Northwestern is how warm and welcoming everyone was. The coaches, first of all, they reached out to me. And then second of all, when they were talking to me, they weren't saying, "Oh, like our team has won this many championships and, this many whatever." They were actually saying, "We would love to have you as, a member on our team because you seem so charismatic and, a very fun person to be around." And, the team would warmly welcome you. And that's what stood out to me. Everybody else was trying to kind of pitch their schools to me. And then Northwestern was just being like, "We would love to have you here. We would be honored if you considered us." And so I came onto the Northwestern team this past year. This was my freshman year. And I just absolutely loved it because just like the coaches had said, the team was absolutely cohesive and welcoming and loving, and I absolutely love it. And one thing that Northwestern I think is so good at doing is welcoming and uplifting these athletes. And when I met my coach, it was just like we worked so well together, and he is so supportive of my charismatic fencing style and doesn't ever put me down about anything. And he always says, "Megumi, you don't fence and you don't act the way you do if you don't be your own self, if you're not your authentic self." So he's really helped me through a lot of things, both fencing and non-fencing. And, overall, I'm just so happy with my decision to go to Northwestern.
It's great advice he gave you too about being authentic because it's so true, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Megumi, as a basketball coach, I've been coaching for 38 years. There are a couple things that stood out to me that I share with kids all the time, and you hit the nail on the head. And that was you were recruited because of who you are and not just about the skills that you're going to bring to the sport. And I
Mhm.
always tell kids, coaches are going to be looking for the person that's going to be a part of the team. They already know what skills come with being a part of the team. That's a given, but it's those intangibles, that like you about your charismatic personality and how you bring that to fencing. Those are the things that are really important. And I really appreciate you sharing that because to me, that stands out huge. And I think a lot of young people forget that, and they're always trying to impress coaches with their skills. And
Mhm.
coaches know that it's about how you interact with your teammates. And the other part that you mentioned too is team is it's about culture, and it sounds like the culture there is top notch when it comes to not just the athletic part, but just the social interactions as well.
Absolutely. And, I'm so happy with my decision. And, it's so funny because in high school, um, my my home club, didn't really like the way that I fenced, not because of, the skills and whatnot, but because of kind of how I approach the sport. Fencing, saber fencing, like I said, is a very aggressive um, weapon, and I am a pretty aggressive fencer. So I don't know if in fencing, we actually scream a lot. So whenever we get a touch, we just yell and kind of display this confidence on the strip that you know sometimes some people don't really prefer because it looks a little bit aggressive and overly ornery and whatnot. But I think when I got to college, I'd been hearing from my coaches a lot, stop being so mad, stop screaming on the strip so much, kind of tamp that down a little bit. And then I got to college, and my coach one-on-one, he told me, Megumi, you don't fence the way you fence if you're not screaming, if you're not doing your thing, if you're not on fire. And that's kind of why we picked you, because, obviously there's a lot of great fencers out there, but you have that charisma, you have that fight that you're so willing to put out there. And so in saber, or actually in college fencing in general, we do 9 bouts with a lot of different schools, and whoever wins, however many out of those 9 bouts wins. So anyway, the first person who's up in those 9 bouts is responsible for setting the tone. Whether they win or they lose, they have to kind of amp up that energy. And so my coach, even though I was a freshman, he was like, I'm going to put you on that position, see how you do. And I didn't win that first bout at my first collegiate tournament, but I was screaming my head off, and I was, really amping up the team and, bringing up the energy. And after that bout, he came and he told me, I'm going to rely on you for the rest of the season for that position. And so I've been at that position for this whole year now. And, he said, we want you in that position next year as well. And so I'm really excited to do that. But what is so important is that my coach believes in me, and he is really embracing and empowering my own competitive fire and not trying to tamp that down at all. It's very sweet of him.
It's beautiful. Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
So change direction a little bit, right? So when we ask you to fill out the requests, and kind of like, obviously we knew you wanted to come in and talk about fencing and what that's like. And I think it's great, because I actually think it's a great sport for self-confidence. And I think that any other teens listening who, haven't found a sport but want one, I think it's a great option, because it really allows you to self-reflect and really work on yourself in so many aspects. So I think it's beautiful. But you had mentioned that you wanted to talk a little bit about like body shaming. So like, share this with us. Why that topic? And, was it experience you had, or just things you've seen? And, how can you share with us and, inspire others to really, not be impacted by that, and realize the negative impact of that, and how to reframe it so it serves you better?
Absolutely. So how I kind of got started on that. So in high school, in freshman and sophomore year, I want to say, I kind of started experiencing these kinds of things within the sport and outside of the sport. And I kind of realized that it was an issue that has to be talked about. So the first time that I kind of realized it was an issue, or kind of felt the effects of it, was I had this teammate who was my best friend. We were the same age, and we had basically the same results in high school. And then one day, she started to say very derisive comments about my body. She would say things like, "Oh, Megumi, your legs are so big, you look like a man," or, "Oh, Megumi, your chest is so flat," or, "You have like so much acne, whatnot." And I was so confused. I was like, why is my best friend talking to me this way? We never talked like this. And I didn't realize at the time, but I had been kind of pulling away from her in results a little bit. I've been going out to tournaments and, beating good fencers and climbing in the rankings, and she was kind of staying static. And so I think it was jealousy that triggered that, now that I think about it. But hindsight is 2020. I had no idea when I was younger. And second, at the same time that was all happening, I was going to high school, and I was friends with girls who were tall, skinny, and kind of avoided sports altogether. And so they were wearing these very short mini skirts and tank tops and everything. And I wanted to kind of be like them, because, everybody wants to fit in high school. And so I wore those kinds of things to school. But when I did, my friends were like, "Oh, Megumi, you're so masculine. Your arms are so big and your legs are so bulky." And, as a teenage girl, you don't really want to hear that, like, "Oh, you look like a man." That's not really something you want to hear. And then at the same time, my coaches at my home club and mentors around me, they were saying things like, um, you know, there were certain things, like if girls came back from college, they'd be like, oh wow, like, what are they feeding her at college? What happened to her and whatnot. And all of this I was surrounded by all of this, and that made me feel as though fencing was something that was making my body ugly, and it was making it, unsightly, and it wasn't something to be celebrated at all. But in junior year of high school, I was in IB biology class, and I was it was on Zoom, and I was drifting off, and I was like, this is so boring. But something that my teacher said, caught my attention. We were learning about anatomy, and she was talking about a lot of different, bodies of different animals, like cats, dogs, fish, and whatnot. And she pointed to all of them, and she said, all these animals have different body structures, but they all serve their unique functions. So structure fits function. And that really stuck in my head for whatever reason. I realized that my body is shaped the way it is because I'm doing something that's so cool, like fencing. And if I really think about it, fencing is such a cool sport, and it's it's literally sword fighting. Not everybody is able to do that, and really out there for anybody who's doing sports or not even doing sports. Everybody's body type is different, and it's serving an amazing function that I think we all take for granted every single day. And that's kind of what we need to realize, that these functions are not necessarily better or worse, but they're just different, and they all have to be celebrated. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into it, and I'm still continuing my research. So, yeah.
That's great. And I think I love what you just said about celebrating it, because that's the truth, right? We're all built differently. We all have different, it's not just how we physically look, right? It's how we think, how we feel,
Absolutely.
our emotions, our experiences, right? And, like somebody with ADHD, right? Like, there's struggles they have, right? But then there's some really cool things, right? Even somebody with autism. I knew somebody who, definitely struggled with that, but you can ask them how to get from one place in the country to the other, and they could tell you without looking at a map. They memorize maps. I mean, so like even our brains, right? Like
Right.
we all have our unique function, and we're put here on this earth for a reason, right? And what we're given, it's just a question of taking what we're giving and using it to our advantage, which is clearly what you're doing. And I think that, if we can get that message out there, right, to other people listening, other teens and college students, like, whatever your superpowers are there, you just have to understand what they are and learn how to manifest them.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
Yeah. So listening to you tell that, Megumi, and so there's two things that popped in my mind. They're questions. What do you think would have happened had your teacher's message not really registered with you and resonated with you, and you had truly had just tuned out and hadn't heard nothing else? Would we be sitting here having this conversation with you possibly?
I think I've never thought about it that way. I don't think I would have, which is so interesting. I think what's so hard about body shaming in athletics and outside of athletics is realizing that it's absolutely bogus, and kind of putting this logic to it. And everybody says body shaming is bad, and we all know why it is, but putting this concrete logic as to why it's okay that our bodies all look dissimilar, I think that's so difficult to nail down. And structure fits function, just that one phrase, packs it all into one little sentence, that it is okay for everybody's body to look different because they all serve different functions. So I might have gotten to that conclusion by myself, but I think that like eureka moment wouldn't have happened. And at the same time, I don't think I could have gone down this research path of, why is it that our bodies look different, and why is it that, these things that say that, it's not okay, why is that bad? So I think it wouldn't have started this whole exploration bit of my research and everything. It would have just been me being like, oh, well, body shaming is bad, but, why, none of us know. So that kind of, I think that kind of path would have absolutely happened, but not to this extent.
Thanks for sharing that.
The second part of my question was going to be, what made you decide to become an advocate for body shaming? And I know it's because of your experience, but what really said, hey, you know what? I'm not just going to overcome this. I'm just going to really become a speaker and stand for this cause.
So, I let's see. So I started my youth organization, the Athlete Narrative, in December of 2020, in my junior year. And junior year, like I mentioned before, is a very important year in fencing for recruitment, and that's when you're kind of reaching out to college, coaches and things like that, and talking yourself up and being like, hey, I want to go to this college. And so I had this mentor at my club who was helping me out and, kind of guiding me through all of it. And one day, they sat me down and they said, Megumi, you need to stop researching this and you need to stop your work in researching body shaming. And I was like, what? Why? And they said, well, because college coaches don't want people who are going to be obnoxious about this. They don't want somebody who's so outspoken about it. And it was in that moment where I kind of realized, oh my goodness. Well, first of all, that got to me because I really wanted to go to college with fencing. And I was like, oh gosh, I really don't want to jeopardize, my position in the running for colleges. And so admittedly, I stopped that work for about 6 months because it really got to my head. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm not going to be recruited to college if I keep doing this. But over time, I realized that it's just so bogus because, first of all, I don't want to go to a college that's not going to support me in my efforts in this. And second of all, this is kind of answering your question. I think it's an issue that is much bigger than just me and just me getting into the college that I want to go to because, it's something that if it impacts me, it's probably impacting a lot of people out there in the sport that I don't know. And actually, I published an op-ed essay in American Fencing magazine in 2022. And still to this day, there are girls who come up, the essay was about, how it was actually about the structure fits function. It was about that. And so to this day, young girls from ages 11 to like 20, these girls come up to me at random competitions. They're like, oh, you're Megumi Oishi, right? We read your essay. It was so impactful. And, it's really important that people out there are talking about this. And so even just having one or two conversations with people, I realized that it was an issue that's bigger than just me. And it's bigger than, just my experiences. And it's something that's actually a paradigm that has to be addressed in our sport. So that's kind of how I realized that it's something that has to be addressed on a wider scale and not just on a personal scale.
Well, what I love about that, Megumi, is even though your coaches in high school were like, hey, you need to lay off this because you probably surmised that, hey, yeah, okay, I want to get recruited, but then I'm not being who I am if I do. And it sounds like that's what the conclusion you came to is I got to be me. And this is part of who I am. It is part of your personality. It's what part of your makeup. And like you said, it's bigger than you. And if you're experiencing it, there are a lot more people out there have. And the fact that you did this op-ed and it's made that much of an impact, you absolutely made the right decision. And I'm sure Keith will join me in applauding you for doing that, because this is how you are a natural born leader. There's no question about that. And going back to when you're talking about your struggles trying to find your sport, then you find your sport. Not only do you find your sport, you become a leader. Your freshman year, you're the first one out. I mean, that speaks volumes for, like you said, the confidence that your coach has in you, but more importantly, the impact that he knows you're going to have on your teammates. And I got goosebumps even saying that. I think as a coach, this is what inspires. This is what young people need to understand. You can inspire not only yourself, but everybody around you, your coaches, your teammates, your classmates, your peers, just by being who you are and people recognizing the special gift and talents that you have. So phenomenal story.
Thank you so much.
I know I was listening. I know I was coming into the tail end, but I was listening. But the other thing too, what you said, Antoine, is like you're making those coaches better coaches. Like you're making them better coaches because when they see something in somebody, oftentimes it gets them to think like they're so impressed. It's like, wow, how can I be better? Right. Like, so I think there's so much
Mhm.
power in that as well. So you were talking about going back to your teacher, your biology. Does she know or he know the impact that that lesson had on you?
I don't think so. That's very interesting to think about. I don't think so. Actually, this is so funny. I loved bio class, and I was like, oh my goodness. I'm gonna go into college and I'm gonna be a pharmacist, and I really want to go down that path. And then I got to college and I did not like biology. I actually had to start out in chemistry because they do weed out classes. So they make you do 2 chemistry classes before you can even take a bio class. And I sat down in that class and I was like, oh my goodness, I do not want to do this. And so I switched to being an English major pre-law as quickly as I could. But all that to say, I only talked to my teacher about being like, oh, I'm gonna be a bio major, but I never told her that I stopped, and I never told her that story either, which I'm sure she would love to hear.
Oh
So
my
maybe
God.
I'll reach out.
She would
Yeah.
be so inspired. Like, I would bet you, like, that's the kind of stuff. Like, so, like, my wife's an educator, right? And a lot of
Mm,
my friends are educators. And, it's really hard being an educator these days, right? With everything going on. But when an educator knows that they made, like, that literally is their career. Like,
mm,
if she knows that you wouldn't be where you are fencing at the level you're at because of something that she said, like, do you realize the, like, how amazing, like, that's something that educator could take the rest of their lives and
mm,
be like, I did my work, like, I got to that,
mm,
I made the difference for that one kid, like what me and Antoine do, right? We want to impact thousands, but, like, if I can
mm,
just impact one and make a difference in one person's life, I
mm,
know I did good work. So I just share that because you probably love to know that,
mm,
like, who you are today, literally, she had, like, some type of impact on the choices you made to bring you to where you are. Because, I mean, you're in an incredible place. You're an incredible young lady, and how cool to know that, like, something that she taught in a lesson inspired you enough to shift your mindset in that moment and change the way you view the world.
Absolutely. I would love to share that with her. Now that you say it, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for letting me know.
Yeah, I'm gonna add one more part to that because like I said earlier on, when you go and win that Olympic gold, she's gonna want to be a part of that too. So
Stop.
We
hey,
came
you
first. It was our idea. Remember?
yeah, it was our idea, but she gets credit too because she started this train and we're jumping on it, but it was our idea. So when those royalty checks start rolling, they want to make sure we get ours first, and then she can get hers, and she gets a smaller cut because she didn't have you on a podcast. So
Oh my goodness.
yeah.
You know what? I don't want any money. I just want to know when you're going to the Olympics and where, so I can come and watch you.
Oh my
Amen.
goodness.
Oh yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. Yeah, we'll give up the royalty and the commission. We don't care about that. If we want to see you reach the top, because I guess that leads to a question: Is that a goal of yours?
It honestly wasn't. I have actually been, I think I want to say, gotta be careful here. I think 16 places away from being considered for the Olympics in the US. So, being at that level, actually, what's so cool about fencing is that the Olympians come and fence with us at national tournaments. We actually see them around very often. And I've actually opportunity to fence them, and sometimes I've beaten them and been like, oh my god, I just beat an Olympian. But to be honest, my goal was to really just to get into college, and that was kind of my goal. But obviously, there's no stopping here. Like I could achieve more goals than I ever could have anticipated. I had no idea I was going to be NCAA All-American my first year. I didn't think I was going to make this much of an impact on my team. Even just culture-wise, I didn't think I was going to be here and be kind of this part of something that's so big and so wonderful. So I don't know. Maybe we will see.
Well, let me just. I'm just going to be coach again for a second here.
Mhm,
Okay, so you just said it yourself. You didn't know you'd have that much of an impact on the culture of your team,
mhm,
but yet you flourished in the role. You didn't shy away from it. Obviously, I'm sure it was intimidating for your coach to put you in that position, but you accept it because you believe in what your coach is telling you. Hey, this is, I see, like Keith was saying earlier, you made your coach better by him recognizing, hey, she has a gift that's going to help the team, which is going to make my coaching easier. And as a basketball coach, when I'm evaluating players, I know everybody can dribble. I know everybody can shoot. I know everybody can play defense, but it's to what level and what differentiates them and their style of play from those other players. And if there's a player that I've had players that out hustle everybody, but they don't have the same skill level as other people. But I will put them in that starting role just because of the impact. They're going to lift the energy like you did for your team. I'm saying all this to say, why can't you jump from 16 to 1? Just knowing what you've done so far, not finding your sport late, excelling in it, even starting late in the high school process, if I'm not mistaken. And then recognizing, hey, I got to get my grades better, and I've got to, my club team just perform well there. Obviously, you got some exposure there. So now here you are, an All-American in your freshman year. That in itself, if I were your coach, I'm like, oh, there's no doubt you're going to get to try out for the national team. So as your co-coaches, unofficial, we're telling you, you put that on your bucket list. And if you don't get it, guess what? You're still going to be better whether you get there or not. Because to me, it seems like you could do that if you put your mind to it based on the things you've accomplished so far. And I'll just add also that you love great music, the 60s.
Oh my goodness. No, yeah, but I think that's what's so impactful about being at Northwestern. And, I talk about it all the time, but my current college coach is so, welcoming and accepting of me. And more than anything, more than anything, he's so very supportive of me and who I am as a fencer. And he says, you're not the fencer you are if you don't bring that spark. And if you don't bring your authentic self, you're not fencing the way you are. You're meant to. And I think he has been so good at supporting me in what I want to do. And he's actually, I also do poetry. He comes to my poetry readings. I just had a presentation at Summer Nationals about this topic, and he came and sat in the very back row, and he was cheering me on the entire time. And so it's things like that that made me realize, first of all, didn't matter that my high school coaches were like, don't stop doing this work, because obviously it turned out all okay. They're supporting me over there. But at the same time, it feels so good to realize that a college coach is so supportive and, just like welcoming to my authentic self in more ways than just fencing, which is so refreshing and honestly such a pleasure to work with every single day.
I was just going to, I just love how you keep bringing authenticity into the conversation, because I think that's the one thing a lot of teens and college students lack, is like they're still finding their way or still dealing with, whatever insecurities or whatever. And when you can get to that point where you realize how, when you're authentic, that's when you really excel. Like things might not always work out the way you want, because not everybody's going to understand that part of you, but you start to realize who are the right people for you, right? And you start to attract, when you're authentic, you start to attract the people around you that you want to be around you. And sometimes people fall off, but you realize those are people that would never really have made it anyway for the long haul, because they're not really going to understand who you are. Because when you're being authentic at the core, that's when you're at your most powerful. So I love that you brought that in. You've used that word 4 or 5 times in the conversation. I love it, because it's not a word that I hear often used by some people. And I love that you have such a good grasp of it and understand the importance of it and the impact that it has on you and other people. So
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yep. That runs through that quote, people come into your life for a reason or for a season. And you've described people that have been in your life for a season. And those are people in high school. And, you make lifelong friends along the way. But ultimately, and what you've just shared with us today, is that you've realized that there's a lot more reasonable people as opposed to seasonable people. And so, again, like Keith said, you're an amazing young lady, that you understand who you are and what you want to achieve. And this is exactly why we have this podcast, because just like Keith referred to a couple of times about making coaches better. You've made us better coaches today just by how you've shared and what you've shared. And this is why we want to do this too, because we want to be better at what we do with the young people we work with. And one of the things that we both do is what we're doing with you today. We believe in allowing you to have the voice that you need so that the other kids, they can listen to old farts like us all day long and be like, yeah, just another adult trying to tell me what to do. But then they listen to somebody closer to their age, like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I've been there. Man, if she can do that, I can do that. And that's why this is important to us to have you on. So we really appreciate you sharing with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
You're not free yet, Antoine.
Yeah.
Antoine's going to hit you with the lightning round now.
All
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. You're good. Oh, yeah. You're going to love these. Now, there's no right or wrong. We used to do 5 questions, but we want to kind of mix it up a little bit. These are rapid fire questions. Just answer as quick as you can. And then we just go through. Okay. All right. So number 1, what is your go-to karaoke song?
Don't Stop Believing by Journey.
Yes. Great song. Great song. Great song.
That's our generation. That's what we grew up with.
You're staying in our generation. Well, you just got another bonus. You got another check mark.
The 80s. That was my years.
All right. Next one. If you could have any superpower, what would it be and why?
Ooh. Okay, I'm gonna answer it off the top of my head. I think I would be I think I would fly. I'm a very impatient person. So I think whenever like there's like somewhere I want to like teleport to, but I want to like actually like see everything as I'm going. So I would love to fly over everybody's heads. That'd be wonderful.
Okay. What is the most adventurous thing you've done?
Oh, adventurous thing. I'm not really into adventures all that much. Let's see. I think starting fencing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good answer.
Yeah.
What's the weirdest food combination you've ever tried and surprisingly liked it?
Oh, there is a ice cream shop near my house or where I live that has pear and blue cheese ice cream, and it sounds disgusting, but it's actually delicious. So
No, it sounds disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Had garlic ice cream, and it was phenomenal.
Really? Okay, I'm gonna need to try that. That actually sounds very interesting. I love garlic.
Wow. Okay. All right. So next is, if you could be any fictional character, who would it be? For a day, for one day. Fictional character for one day.
Hey, oh my goodness. I think fictional character. I would want to be probably, this is gonna sound so weird. I would want to be Fantastic Mr. Fox. I just love that movie so much. And just like the worlds that they're living in is like it's so cute and I love it so much. So I would love to be that character. But yeah.
Okay. All right. And if you could have one celebrity as your best friend, who would it be and why?
One celebrity. Oh goodness. I think I would be best friends with. I'm trying to learn German right now. This is gonna sound so weird. I'm trying to learn German right now, and I'm like learning it on my own. But there's this like German like Instagram star that I really love. Her name's Lena, and I would love to be her friend just to be able to like converse in German. Like that'd be so cool. I love learning new stuff. So yeah.
All right. And the last one, what's the most memorable concert or live performance that you've ever attended?
Oh, okay. It was the music festival that was held at Northwestern, and we actually had Offset, a very famous rapper, come in, and he was really, really good, just rapping wise. But at the end of his performance, he was like something along the lines of, "I love you, Northwestern. You can be whatever you want to be," and that was so impactful. It was like I was just sweaty and gross from the concert, jumping around, but I was like, oh my goodness, Offset just told me I can be whoever I want to be, so I'm gonna be whoever I want to be. So that was very impactful to me.
Great. Keith, do you know who Offset is?
I've heard the name. Yeah, The music I listen to so far removed.
Yeah, well, you're one step ahead of me because that's the first time I've ever heard of Offset. So thank you for
Heard the name.
entertaining it.
Of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Megumi, this has been absolutely phenomenal. We really appreciate you taking the time, bringing your energy, your experience, your knowledge, your passion, your love, your authenticity, because that's your word. And we really do appreciate you coming on and sharing.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
You dropped a lot of like really like golden nuggets about just, you know, body shaming and authenticity and inspiring others. So yeah, it was great to have you. We really appreciate you taking the time to be here, especially during your time off when you're supposed to be chilling.
Right.
Oh, no. This is my pleasure. Thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Absolutely. Our pleasure. And if you would like to be a guest or you know someone that would like to be a guest on Teen Speak, you can go to Keith's website, shiftyourpower.com, or my website, coachtcorner.com, and fill out the guest information form. We'd love to have you on. You'd have a lot of work to do to upstage Megumi, but I'm sure you welcome the challenge. And I will just leave my parting quote for today will be, your attitude almost always determines your altitude in life.
And I just say the only restrictions that we have in life are the ones we place on ourselves.
We thank you all very much, and we will look forward to seeing you on our next episode. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Are you looking for an experienced youth empowerment and leadership coach to help your teenager find their true north? Look no further. Let Coach Keith and Coach T show you how, through education, support, and inspiration. Visit their websites, shiftyourpower.com and coachtscorner.com, respectively, to learn more about the services they offer and to book a session today.